Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are located on planet Earth. Wake up, get your cup of coffee, and get ready because you are now tuned in to another edition of the PulseWave Report with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Reports. And right now, if you go to PulseWaveTrading.com, you can take advantage of our quarantine special where you can get access to all of our reports for the most ridiculous lowest prices we've ever done. This is our goal to help as many people as possible before 2021 gets here. You want to get yourself ready and revved up and ready to go, because next year is going to be disastrous, according to most economists. Therefore, you want to get yourself in place, lined up, so that you can benefit and profit from the chaos. Also, coming up this Friday, we have a wonderful webinar planned for this Friday and this coming Monday. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin. That's right. We're going to show you how to pimp these markets and how to take advantage of what's been going on with Bitcoin. So, right, it doesn't matter if you're new to Bitcoin or you got experience with Bitcoin. We're going to show you the power of the PulseWave Price Trigger Reports, and you don't want to miss it. That's this Friday and this coming Monday. If you go to PulseWaveTrading.com, you can find out more details about that. And prepare yourself, register for the event. And we got some goodies. Also, we want to ask you, the listener, since we have the greatest listeners in the world, who would you like for us to have on as a guest? That's right. Who would you like to hear me interview? Think of it. Think about it. Who would you like for us to have on the show to interview? So we'll leave it up to our listeners. If you have any ideas, we'd like to hear them. All right, you can contact us and let us know what you would like to see, what you like to hear. Any guests, we would love to have them on the show, interview them, pick their brains about different things. You're not limited to type of guests, any type of guest, doesn't matter. We will talk to them. In addition to that, you can hit us up. You can drop comments in the live stream comment section, or you can go to our website and we have a contact form there. You can send your request, or if you are already a subscriber, you can just go to the trading room and hit myself up or one of our support team members or Frank, any one of us, or our moderators. You can just get at us, and we would like to hear it. All right. With that said, also one last bit of news here. I am going to be changing my watch list. All right, for the time being and for the foreseeable future, because of what I have been seeing in the algos, I'm switching my particular focus away from the futures and more into the equities. There are multiple reasons for that. So my primary focus is going to be switching out of futures and more into equities. And I will also be still focusing on the forex as well. So forex and equities is going to be my primary focus for the time being, no futures. One of the biggest reasons for that is because of the uncertainty ahead of us. You think the election is over, but it's not. All right. It's still a heated debate, a heated battle, and they're trying to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. News is coming out daily, and we got to be privy to that. We need to understand that so we don't get ran over and steamrolled over. So because of all of that uncertainty, that's why I'm narrowing down my focus. And the other reason for that is because, as you've heard me say on the show multiple times, the equities are better priced than their derivative counterparts in the futures market. Way better priced. You don't have that much overshoot of key resistance and support areas. Excuse me, even though equities are more prone to gappage, just like clockwork, we know that the gappage and the bullish and bearish pointers always get reconciled. With futures, not necessarily the case. Also, there's the issue of contango and contract rollover and all of that jazz. And with the equities, you're able to manage that risk a little better. So moving forward, that's kind of going to be primarily my focus for the time being. If that changes in the future, of course, I'm going to let you know. But for right now, we're looking to pimp these markets on the equity side. This is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity for you post waivers out there to take advantage of what's about to go down in these markets. You think this year was something, you ain't seen nothing yet. What's coming, what's about to come is going to be so over the top, you're not going to believe it yourself. So get ready for what's coming. All right. I can't stress it enough. You guys who've been trading the cryptos using the power of the pulse waves know what I'm talking about. You've been cleaning up, and it's about to go on even more so. So I just want to encourage everybody in that. Just wanted to give you the update. So when you see my watch list on the dashboard, you'll see that it's a little bit different because I'm going to have the equities that I'm focusing on in my sample portfolio. Each equity that I have will have a corresponding inverse ETF associated with it. For those that don't know, I love trading the ETF that they have out there. There's an ETF for just about everything, and there are certain ones that I like to focus on, and I trade in and out of regularly. So you'll see that when you peep my watch list. So I just wanted to throw that out there, let you know what I've been working on, what I'm doing. I stay in the lab. I stay labbing. And just wanted to give you all a heads up on that so you know what I'm doing. This morning, as you can see, the markets are a little bit pulling back just a little bit from the all-time highs. And I believe that is only temporary. I believe the market is going to it's just filling the gaps because, we gapped up huge. And then after that, we'll base out, and then the market will be off to the races again. Not only has the market received tens of trillions of dollars in stimulus over the last few decades, but there's promise for more stimulus. And that's what you've been hearing a lot of the debates on. The market is begging, pleading for more stimulus. It wants more stimulus. And the questions that are out there is the market going to get what it wants? People always want to know, is the market going to get what it wants? And I have to tell you that there is a precedent that's already been set that says that, yes, the market is going to get what it wants. One of the reasons for that is that no sitting president wants to have the market collapse and crash on their watch. You and I both know that the powers that be have no problem bringing down the market to force the hand of the Fed and the president and the Treasury and the Congress and the House, the Senate, you name it. They will do what they need to do in order to get their attention, and they'll bring the market down. No one wants to be blamed for that. No one wants to have their legacy tarnished because of that. So I'm letting you know that that's exactly what will happen if Wall Street does not get its way. It throws a tantrum, and it throws a tantrum in the way of declining markets. So just something to think about as we move forward. Here we are in the final leg of this race, the last month of 2020. Will it go out with a whimper or will it go out with a bang? Traditionally, you hear people start to talk about the Santa Claus rally. Well, the market's rallied all year. So really the Santa Claus rally is a mute subject at this point. It makes no difference. It would only make a difference if the markets have suffered a rough year and we've been down all year. But no, the market recovered off of the March lows. So the Santa Claus rally philosophy is a mute point. The window dressing, too, has become more of a mute point because for the most part, no one really missed anything this year if you think about it. So there may be some rotations out of those assets that haven't really been performing or whose outlook looks a little bit dismal going into the first, second quarter of next year. But other than that, I really don't see any difference. I see more of the same. So there, I don't really see any panic buying going into the end of the year. We're probably just going to continue our slow grind upwards, and that'll be it. And I think the market will finish in the green for the year. Now, that is with all things being equal. That means that we don't have some type of a shock. That means that some major World War III incident doesn't break out. That means that there's not something terrible or catastrophic that happens on the home front. That's barring all of these other side issues. All things being equal and the same, nothing really big happening. Market should finish in the black this year and not in the red. So that's my take on it. How high will the markets go? I don't think the markets are going to go down anytime soon, barring some, like I said, unforeseen incident. It would take some unforeseen incident that no one is aware of, and there are no breadcrumbs in the forest leading to it. So, barring any event like that, I think we're still on pace for new highs. I don't really think we've seen the highs in the equity market. Just like I told you, you haven't seen the highs in the Bitcoin yet. You haven't. It is what it is. Just keeping it real with you, keeping it 100 with you. These are just things we have to deal with. We can't ignore what we see. You know what I mean? We just can't. So with that being said, I just wanted to put it on the table for you so you can know what we work and what we're dealing with and what I see going into the end of this year and to the beginning of next year. 2021 has promised to be a very scary year. It will dwarf 2020, according to multiple economists and those that are in the know. It is going to be rough. It is going to be rife with multiple companies going bust, laying people off, and different segments of the economy crumbling. So that is the scary part of what people are frightened about going into next year. So on one hand, you got people praying for this year to hurry and be over with already because they have hopes for next year. But I'm here to tell you, the hope is not coming. You'll see what I mean as we move closer and closer. You'll see what I mean. And you'll remember that I told you that this was going to happen. So I'm not trying to scare you to death, just trying to give you a dose of medicine of reality. This is reality medicine for you, so that you're not blindsided when it comes. All right. If you expect the worst and prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen, that's a good thing. But if you don't prepare for the worst and you don't expect it, like I say, I always tell you, the punch that you don't see coming always hurts the most because you had no time to brace for it, no time to prepare and brace for impact. So this is the time, ladies and gentlemen, to brace for impact. No longer is winter coming. Winter is already here. So trying to search for your coat, mittens, and scarf is too late. Way too late. Should have been had that on before you came outside. And it is what it is. I know that a lot of people find it difficult. You find it difficult to believe that there are people, that there are forces that are out to get you. There's an old saying that says, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean that people are not out to get me. Well, you need to understand that. You need to understand that there are forces at work right now that are not good. There are forces at work that are not out for your betterment. If you are looking for the government to save you, to rescue you, you are sadly misguided. The government is not going to save you. The government is not going to rescue your finances because the government cannot rescue itself. The U.S. government is broker than you are. Why do you think it keeps getting money from the Federal Reserve? It's dependent on money from the central banks because it has no money. It lost the right to issue its own money. It gave that responsibility to a private company known as the Federal Reserve. Therefore, there's nothing you can do about it. That's right. You're at the mercy of others, unelected officials. And there's nothing you can do about it. This economic slide is only about to accelerate, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting so bad that it's getting to the point where no industry is being shielded from this. Even in the DMV. Did you know that the DC Metro, the Metro Rail, the DC Metro Rail is facing massive cuts to its rail service and its bus service, and a third of all workers are about to be terminated. So that's roughly 3,800 positions, almost a third of the entire workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, you would never thought that transportation would be affected, would you? This is a massive blow to the DMV. Massive blow. It's off the hook. It's on a whole nother level, ladies and gentlemen. Very difficult to wrap your head around. Very difficult. And this is a special thing. I don't know if I ever shared this with any of you before. Maybe I did on the late great Charlie McGrath's Wide Awake radio show. Maybe I did it there. But for you new people, my mother and I, we were the 100th rider when Montgomery County started its Metro bus service many moons ago. My mom and I were the 100th rider. We were on TV, on the news, and everything. And as far as the DC Metro Rail, the train, I was one of the first people to ride that as well. But I believe it was my second grade class. Yeah, second grade. My second grade class, we had we went on a field trip because they had just opened the DC Rail. They had just opened it, and we went on a field trip to ride the Metro Rail. And we also went to the airport. I believe it was the Reagan National Airport. I don't recall which one we went to at the moment. I think it was Reagan National or whatever. Anyway, and we watched the planes take off and stuff like that. It was really cool. And we were one of the first riders on it as well. It had just opened. and our class got lucky to be the first riders of the train. So yeah, the public transportation in the DMV, we go way back. So to hear this, to see this, this is devastating. Devastating. And it's going to be felt. It's really going to be felt. But you need to look at things from another perspective, from a whole nother perspective. What is this really saying about the economy? You got to think about it. What is this really saying? It's not just New York that is facing draconian cuts to its mass transit infrastructure. And New York is world renowned for its mass transit infrastructure. You can catch a bus or a train 24/7, 365. It never closes or shuts down. But they're facing mass transit infrastructure cuts, and the workforce in that department, because the city is sliding into financial ruin. Thank you, Como. The country's capital is doing everything it can to catch up, facing a hole in the budget of nearly $500 million. The general manager of Washington, D.C. Metro is proposing massive budget cuts to rail and bus service that would take effect this summer. What did they know and what are they seeing that you all don't know and are not seeing? General Manager Paul Whitfield said in September that without more federal help, big cuts would be needed. Since then, things have only gone from bad to worse. And as WJLA reports, overall rail ridership is down more than 85% most weekdays, while bus ridership is less than half what it was in 2019. Among the things Wheatfield is proposing for Metro Rail are the following: the closing of 19 stations, Archives, Arlington Cemetery, Cheverly, Clarendon, Cleveland Park, College Park, East Falls Church, Eisenhower Avenue, Federal Center Southwest, Federal Triangle, Greensboro, Grosvenor, Judiciary Square, McLean, Morgan Boulevard, Mount Vernon Square, Smithsonian, Van Dorn Street, not Van Dorn Street, Virginia Square, GMU, eliminating rail service on Saturday and Sunday, having trains run only every half hour on each line. Stations served by two lines would have trains every 15 minutes, as would red line stations between Silver Spring and Medical Center. That red line right there is the vein of the entire operation, ladies and gentlemen. Closing rail stations early at 9 p.m. weekdays. Ouch. Reintroducing turnbacks where not all red and yellow line trains go to the end of the line, and only having Silver Line service run between Ashburn when it opens and Boston. Good grief. For those of you that are not from the DMV and don't know what we're talking about, this is the equivalent of the New York Metro rail system saying, we're going to close all service. We're not going way out to Yonkers. We're not going out to Brooklyn. We ain't going to Queens. We're going to have to shut all that down. We only going to Manhattan. You see what I'm saying? This is devastating, you guys. There's a lot of history behind some of these stations that they're closing. It's a big deal. And you have to ask yourself, I wonder why that is. Now, it said Smithsonian. Smithsonian is probably the number one attraction in Washington, D.C., famous for the Smithsonian museums. You got the Air and Space, you got the Natural History, you got so many. I can't even name them all. So to close the train to the Smithsonian, first of all, let me tell you why that's also painful. That's also painful because there's no parking in and around the Smithsonian. The only way to really enjoy going to the museums is by hoofing it by way of train. You take the train and then you hoof it to all the museums. That's how that goes. You do not drive to the Smithsonian. You take the train. So if this is going away, what is that saying, ladies and gentlemen? Are you beginning to sense the darkness yet? Like the old horror movie. Have you checked the children yet? In addition, Metrobus would also face big cuts. Widefield is proposing only having a total of 41 bus routes. Those routes would be longer, covering the same territory that 60 bus lines currently cover. Now, traditionally, some of the longer bus lines, the ride, if you went from end to end, was 45 minutes to an hour. They're talking about, if they do that, you're talking about an hour and a half to 2 hour bus rides now if you go from one end to the other. Wheatfield said overall bus service would be about 45% of pre-COVID-19 levels, adding that bus service would actually be added on weekends to try to make up for having no weekend rail service. And although Wheatfield has been trying to minimize the number through buyouts and negotiations with the union to not give salary increases this year, he says thousands of jobs will be cut under his proposal. We're looking at roughly 2,400 positions that we have to eliminate on top of the 1,400 positions that we're eliminating right now in the current budget, he said. So that's roughly 3,800 positions, almost a third of our entire workforce. So that's extremely difficult. Man. Metro has lost hundreds of millions of dollars in fare money from riders after the pandemic caused ridership numbers to plummet. Although Wheatfield expects some riders to come back next year, he doesn't think it will be nearly enough to avoid big cuts. He expects rail and bus ridership combined in the fiscal year 2022, which runs from July 1st, 2021 until June 30th, 2022, to be about 34% of what it was in pre-pandemic. Most of Metro's fare revenue money comes from rail ridership, no diggity. You know how expensive that train is? Which is also the ridership that has been hurt the most by the pandemic. A higher percentage of bus riders have continued riding than rail riders. Yeah, they don't have a choice. Wheatfield says there are potential ways the need for such severe cuts would be minimized. They include if a vaccine is successful and if Congress passes a bill to provide relief money as it did much earlier in the pandemic. Of course, it all boils down to that money. They're saying, yo, we want to tap the pocket of the central bank too. Can we get some of that Ben Bernanke money? If passed, the cuts would take effect July 1st. Wheatfield is also proposing using $250 million in money that Metro had planned to use on maintenance for capital budget costs instead. Now, Mayor Bowser provided the following statement in a tweet. WMATA's deeply troubling proposal is another reminder of the critical need for federal stimulus to revive our economy and to preserve our way of life. Not too long ago, with our partners in the region and our federal government, we put Metro on the right track to meet the needs of residents and visitors alike. Regardless of party or ideology, we must once again come together to save Metro. Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's break it down. So you heard the article. You heard it. You heard what it said. Now let's talk about what it did not say. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are sitting down and you have a cup of coffee. All right, time to get ready. Time to get your big boy pants, your big girl pants on, man. Diapers are not allowed in this territory. This is a grown-ups room only right now. I hope you sitting down. Let's do the knowledge. Let's break down the science to what is being not said in this article. So if you're going to cut rail service on the weekends, and if you're going to close 19 stations, not one, not nine, but 19 stations, major stations, what is that saying about the United States of America's economy? What are they not telling you? Well, if you cease and shut down the Smithsonian, that means you're not expecting any tourists. Zero, zilch. The only way to enjoy the Smithsonian is by the train. All right? The train. The train, the train, the train, the train. There's no parking. You're not expecting tourism. You're expecting a collapse, a total collapse in tourism. That's check one. Then you want to shut down archives, Arlington Cemetery, also big tourist attractions. Then you're going to shut down Federal Triangle, Federal Center Southwest, Mount Vernon Square, Van Dorn, Judiciary Square. You're expecting it sounds to me, you guys tell me if you kind of sensing this too. Are they expecting a straight up government shutdown? Because all of those centers I just named are federal buildings. That's the heart of a lot of government employment in the district. Really? Really, ladies and gentlemen? Is that what we're talking about right now? So not only are you expecting zero tourism for the entire tourism industry to collapse, but you're also expecting government shutdown. Because those are government job locations. Judiciary Square, Mount Vernon Square, Federal Center Southwest, Federal Triangle, really? College Park, Cleveland Park, East Falls Church. So now you're not expecting for the school, you're expecting schools to straight up shut down altogether because those are schools, large institutions. We all know this. That means you're expecting the University of Maryland to go full lockdown, no classrooms. You're expecting the schools to shut down. You're expecting tourism to come to a halt. And you're expecting possibly government shutdown because you're closing major government employment arteries on the train line. That is huge, ladies and gentlemen. How else are we supposed to take this news? You explain it to me. Help me out. Am I missing something? Those that live in the DMV, go ahead and hit me up in the live real quick. Am I missing something here? Is there something I'm not seeing? Because that's what it looks like to me. It looks like you're getting prepared for a huge lockdown, a straight up medical martial law, worse than what we saw in March. You're not expecting people to come outside. You're shutting down major lines, major stations. Are you close? It is a temporarily, taking those out of service. No, it said closing the stations down. That's permanent. That's scary, ladies and gentlemen. If the nation's capital is about to turn black and go straight black, total blackout, lights off, lights are off, what is that saying about the rest of the country? Ladies and gentlemen, you need to think about this. They want to shut down service to the universities and the federal buildings where many, many, many thousands of people are employed. These lockdowns are becoming a way of life. Are you preparing for a catastrophic event, Washington, D.C.? Or is this another way to try one last ditch effort to try to force the arm of the Fed to give you more money? Are we saying that if there is no stimulus for every state in the union, that every state in the union is about to go belly up? How bad are things really? How bad is it really, ladies and gentlemen? What's about to go down that they don't want you to know? Having everybody locked in their homes. Kids can't go to school physically. They have to do everything online. Everything's going to be done online. You won't be allowed to leave your house. This is getting scary. This goes beyond Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. This even goes beyond 1984. This is on a whole nother level what we're seeing right here, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not pretty. Is anyone else seeing this? Is everybody that blind, deaf, and dumb they can't see what's happening right now? Like, really? We're not supposed to talk about this for real? We're supposed to just pretend like this is not happening? Really? Really? Y'all can't see this? What's happening right in front of you? Man, this is downright scary. Folks should really be thinking about this, doing the knowledge to this, man. There's science here. There's science behind this. Come on now. People need to wake up. This is happening on your watch. This is happening right in front of your eyes. What are the people prepared to do about it? Have you noticed you ain't heard nothing about protests? You ain't heard no more news about any kind of riots. All that seems to have gone away once Biden got elected. No one's talking about the things they need to be talked about. How bad is it? How bad is it? Well, let me help you with that a little bit. We had a big miss on the ADP employment numbers. Yeah, we did. Amid a second wave of lockdowns, weak ISM employment data, and a disappointing rebound in initial jobless claims, analysts expected ADP employment data to hold steady with a gain of 440,000 jobs in November after disappointing expectations in October. However, ADP printed a hugely disappointing 307,000 additions, which is the weakest addition since July. All right. While November saw employment gains, the pace continues to slow. Job growth remained positive across all industries and all sides as both goods and services sectors added jobs, but at a much slower pace. Small and medium-sized businesses added the most jobs. Yeah, those are the ones you want to really get up out of here because the country's becoming more and more anti-small business. For now, signals are that the U.S. labor market is fading fast. Will this mean bad news on Friday? And will bad news be good news for the market? Remember, the worse the economy gets, the higher the Dow goes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is reality. You can't make this stuff up. You can't. So the question is, why is this happening? What is really going on? What is the word here? I told you, we're near the end game. Instead of calling it the end game, they're calling it the reset. All right, they want the one world currency, the one world religion. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen, whether you want it or not. It's being set up right now as we speak. It's already here. It's not some distant thing, 20, 30 years from now. No way. It's here now. Live and in the flesh, live and direct. Why do you think Bitcoin has been going up? Why do you think gold, even though it had a little dip here, is trying to stage a comeback? Why do you think oil is ticking up? There's a reason for that, ladies and gentlemen. There is a reason that oil is ticking up. It's because they know that which is coming. Yes, indeed. They know that which is coming. And it ain't good. They ruined the economy, and they did it on purpose. They did it on purpose. We live in a very sick world now. How sick, you may ask? Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. How are you going to deal with that? There's nothing worse than the politicization of science, or should I say scientific method. If there's one thing that 2020 has taught us, is that we live within the basic framework. Science is nothing today if not political. This is a reality that we have to address, ladies and gentlemen. But it's beyond even that. This is a framework of experts in all major intellectual arenas, be it economic, psychology, diet, or health, and they have all been tied in some basic way to public safety and the role of government in administering that goal, supposedly for the betterment of all people. That's what they want you to believe. Now, the use of science and the scientific method is perfectly applicable when illuminating underlying physical laws of the universe, but it is a means to an end, not an end unto itself. And politics is nothing if not obsessed with ends rather than means. The problem, however, is that positivism, of which the scientific method is the implementation of said philosophy, ultimately has limited application in the real world. This is because it rejects the illumination of truth through the use of intellect and logic, relying solely on experience instead. Because positivism cannot create hypotheses, only test them. The process of generating hypothesis is known as a priori, the deriving of knowledge from that which has come before. Just like trading, we look at charts which shows historical patterns. Some, but not all of which derive from the results of positives methodology or experiment and experience. Now, a priori argument rely on intellectual rigor and logic to produce hypotheses based on what is known. Experimentation via positivism, i.e. the scientific method, is then used to prove or disprove said hypothesis. To give an example, the Gibbs free energy equation was derived from a priori set of postulates built on the proven theorems through which mathematics were derived. In short, we built math through logic and reason. A priori, and men like Gibbs used those mathematical tools to derive their equations, which govern the way matter interacts. Now, where positivism comes in is in the testing of Gibbs' equation to see if it indeed holds up to scrutiny. And under very specific boundary conditions, it does. Theory, a priori, practice and application, positivism. Now, this distinction is truly the most important thing that needs to be interjected back into our political discourse. The problem we have today with modern liberalism, especially those in the sciences, is this misapplication of positivism to subjects where variables are explicitly beyond its ability to control for. This is why appeals to believe all scientists and science has spoken are at best specious, even if they have the veneer of truth to them. Because when you set up an experiment without proper controls, none of the conclusions you draw from it are defensible. They may point you to inquire further, certainly, and that is an unqualified good thing in the search for truth, but it cannot be bludgeoned by which that search for truth ends simply because someone got their intellectual cookie either. In the down and dirty world of politics, hastily drawn conclusions from poorly controlled science can be used to write really provocative headlines capable of swaying public opinion. Now, again, I point you to both theories about dark matter and global warming. Because we live in an age of experts, it is easy to do this and create both mass hysteria as well as arm marginally, if not wholly untrained people with bad arguments about how to craft policy. Worse, now we've unleashed them on Twitter to ensure no real conversation is possible. We call that manufacturing consent. Listen very carefully to the most political arguments that start with the data suggests or experts say, and what you most likely will hear is someone talking out of their backside by appearing to have facts on their side. Because using positivism in the social sciences is just inappropriate. In medicine, it's the great frontier, and by definition, it's difficult to get any kind of definitive answer from. Like, orthopedic surgeons, they hate having appointments where someone's complaining about neck or back pain. One of the reasons why they hate that, because it's a longer visit. You normally want to make that the last person you see during the day because it's going to take up a lot of time, and you cannot disprove that someone is having pain in their back or neck. You can take all the x-rays and all the MRIs you want, and they can show I don't see anything. That still does not mean the patient is not having or experiencing severe pain. Well, that's where we are. Once you've done real science and have had your behind kicked by simple systems like in, excuse me, you begin to understand what it means to test things and to draw things out to their logical conclusion. In essence, it's all a giant appeal to authority, logical fallacy that we're seeing in the mainstream media. Okay? It's not correct scientific method. You're being asked or even told or commanded to listen to XYZ expert because they said so, because they have a doctorate degree in this particular field of study. Instead of, well, let's do a peer review. Let's debate the matter with other experts in this field. Nope, this is the top expert in the field. No other discussion is to be had. And when you factor in the corrupting nature of government funding of science, picking winners and losers for grant money, you really have to question what it is you think you know about just about everything you've ever been told. You ever thought about that before? Politics is where philosophy and science meet and at times explode. For more than 100 years, progressives and leftists of various stripes have appealed to science to engineer a better society through the misapplication of the scientific method to build their arguments. Central planning ring a bell to you? They have persuaded this to the exclusion of all other considerations to prove to the world that the community as a whole is always bettered by the suppression of the individual through shared policy goals and ill-defined, ever-expanding definitions of human rights. That's why communism has taken over the United States of America. It's taken over its universities, and it's taken over its government. The former USSR was the original technocracy built on these ideas. Today's leftists still think it's got a bad rap, and that is pretty pathetic. They're being taught that. They're being taught Hitler was misunderstood. All the communist dictators throughout history have been misunderstood, and they're really just good people trying to do the best they can for their country. Baloney. It's nonsense. Welcome to the arguments of the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's no different than the cultural one or the Bolshevik one or the French one. This is a fundamental misapplication of positive thinking. Asserting your hypothesis is correct when the data tells you it's wrong. You don't get to keep backfitting of the data to fit the hypothesis and call that proof. But that's what we have going on here. That's the absolute antithesis of science. And even then, the data is clear. Communism doesn't work. All right? Mises rigorously deconstructed all forms of collectivism a priori in his seminal work, Socialism and Economic and Sociological Analysis, published in 1922. The 20th century experiments in communism and other flavors of socialism all support Mises's conclusions, again derived a priori from first principles of human behavior. Do we really need another one? Communism in all forms of collectivism destroys capital, wastes time, and its adherents kill millions of people in their quest to find the perfect system. But they are chasing their own tails, begging a question that was already answered a priori. There really was a black swan on the horizon. If not for the vast mineral wealth in the form of oil and gas, the USSR wouldn't have lasted half as long as it did. And even then, all it took was an oil price war in the 1980s to bring it down. Sort of like what we had in 2020 to bring the US down when they took oil negative 100. There's a lesson in there for other nakedly tyrannical people, including those enlightened ones in Scandinavia. When the oil runs out, Norwegians, I hope you have something else to export other than zero. While here in the US, a similar technocracy was built slowly through the corruption of the institutions of education, politics, and culture, all using the same positive arguments. But science says modern leftists pride themselves on believing in the rationality of science, many going so far as to discount all religion and culture as nothing more than quaint customs of the mouth-breathing rubes. What a slap in the face to the peoples that are governed. And with COVID-19, we've reached the height of this practice of imbuing scientists with a godlike knowledge of what we should do given any thorny political problem. That's why pseudo-intellectuals and midwits in white suburbia bought into the lies of Anthony Fauci while ignoring the flip-flopping of him, the CDC, the WHO, and every other so-called expert. This science worship neatly bypasses politicians you don't like to support whatever argument you want to believe. It doesn't matter that it's now just as much a religion as Christianity or Islam. Remember, I discussed that sometime back here on the show, where we talked about scientism and how it's become a religion. If the high priest of science says masks are necessary on Tuesdays but not Thursdays, then they simply go along with it because the alternative is admitting that your priests are just hucksters with fancy government titles. It also absolves people of the responsibility of making the hard decisions. The experts have all that worked out, don't they? Which brings us to what actually started this whole conversation this morning. One of these true high priests of scientism, the straight out of the central casting Neil deGrasse Tyson, opined recently on RT about how disappointed he was with humanity over not coming together over COVID-19. It just shows you that he is a paid shill. Quote, I thought that when the coronavirus landed that we wouldn't have all band together and say we're all human and that's a common enemy like an alien invasion. We've all seen it in the movies. We got to be together on this one, but it didn't happen, to my great disappointment in our species. Remember, this is the same guy that admitted that the earth was pear-shaped. Anything but flat. He actually said it was pear-shaped. That's right. He is on record saying that. And this is who you hail as basically the godfather of science. The new Albert Einstein, the new Nikola Tesla. Really? Really? At this late date, for a guy like him to go on thinking COVID-19 was such an existential threat to humanity as an alien invasion is really stunning and mind-blowing and eye-opening. I thought this guy was supposed to be smart, like really smart. It's like he's forgotten that Alan Moore's Watchmen, which I'm sure he read, wasn't an operating manual for society, but rather a warning of where this fetishization of official smart people leads us. When are people going to wake up? When are people going to wake up? COVID-19 isn't a threat to humanity like they've been leading you to believe. It's the opposite. They've been using deceptive and manipulative emotional blackmail to get you to go along with it. And they knew that wouldn't go but so far. So now certain jurisdictions are making it law and they can lock you up and throw away the key if you're caught without a mask. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to do the science to this. We need to do the knowledge to it. You need to wake up to what's going on in front of you because it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. You dig? All right, so I digress. But all this is having an effect on the markets. So what you're going to want to do going forward, you're going to want to watch the whole crypto market. You're going to want to watch gold and silver because those are going to start really, really moving, exploding higher, and it's going to be news driven. So as reality starts to really set in, that's when those will start to explode. Like I said, the equity market's going to continue to run also. All right? Just saying. So think about it. Do yourself a favor. Go to PulseWaveTrading.com. Get ready for the Friday webinar this Friday and this coming Monday. And get ready for some explosive moves in these markets. You got to be ready. Only way you're going to be ready is if you go to PulseWaveTrading.com and take advantage of our quarantine special that we got going on. Use the coupon is given to you on the website, and you'll be good to go. And remember, hey, ladies and gentlemen, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.